about that.
Kevin Williams, how you doing today?
I'm good.
All right, so behind you is your home.
Yes.
You're the first person we've been able to talk to, save their stories for the club when we actually get a look at your house.
Great.
So you got the house, what, back in 86?
We got the house that was on that lot in 86. We actually tore it down in 91.
So did you have a vision of kind of what the layout and everything? You got a whole lot of glass across the front of it. So just kind of tell me the vision of when you guys created that.
Well, when we bought the house, it was one of the small cottages that populated the river for many, many years. It was in really, really awful shape in terms of maintenance, and just wasn't very well built because it was a cottage that was expanded from a small, let's call it a fishing shack.
Okay.
So not very well put together. So we kind of stumbled into it. I bought a old Porsche from a guy that lived down the street. And he said, "Do you want to have a beer on my deck?" And I'm like, "Sure." So we go out on his deck, and I see a pontoon going by, and a canoeist, and a skier, and I'm like, "What is this?" He says, "White River." I said, "Well, I didn't even realize Indianapolis had a river because I had just moved there a year before." So eventually, we found that the house down the street was for sale, and we made an offer, and through some negotiations, we bought it and fixed it up for about 5 years, and then tore it down and started over.
You tore it down and started over?
Yep.
What? Why?
It was not worth saving. It was
the old house you tried to fix up, but didn't really fix up.
well,
Kind of did.
We
but
fixed it up to get a nice appraisal on it. Let's put it like that.
Oh, okay.
It was so poorly constructed. We couldn't put a second floor on it. We couldn't really repair it to the point where it would be a house that we'd want to stay in for a long time.
Okay.
So at that time, I worked for an architectural firm, and my friends at the firm drew up plans for this new house. I said, "We're waterfront. We want something spectacular," and that's what we got.
That's great.
Yeah.
So part of your career was working with a lot of ad agencies as well.
Yes.
And you said you went to IU for graphics and media.
Yes, and Ivy Tech.
So I went to Ball State for journalism and national advertising campaigns, and I ran Yellow Book for 12 years. When you were in high school, what motivated you towards that path? Why did you want to start getting the messaging out?
Well, I always had a good grasp of design and artistic stuff. My father was in the auto industry and was a model maker, so he was very skilled at sculpting, let's call it, because he made models for the Ford and Continental and Studebaker and people like that then became cars. So I grew up in a sort of a creative industry, and I became a pretty good artist in high school. I found that I had some talent. I went to IU to get a career going in education. I wanted to be an art teacher.
Okay.
Then I realized how much a teacher made per year.
Right.
And that took that away right away. I enrolled over at Ivy Tech in a graphics and media program and commercial art, learned to draw, write copy, produce television, all the things that go into the graphic arts and media business.
Right. So you also had a salon or a studio, salon spa, Salon 2000 on the Circle. Was it right on the Circle? Where exactly?
Studio 2000.
Studio, where was it exactly?
Right at the corner of Monument Circle and East Market.
Okay.
On top of the Starbucks that is now changed into something else.
And you started that in 89?
Yeah. I married my hairstylist. When I moved to town, all my coworkers suggested, "Hey, here's a doctor, here's a dentist, and you got to get your hair cut by Linda." So I went to Linda, and that was probably June of 85, and we were engaged by March of 86 and married in September. We purchased the house in the middle of that in July of 86.
And Rachel, you had from your previous marriage.
Correct, yeah.
She's got a couple boys now, Bennett and
Mary Jane, a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl. Boy and a girl.
Yeah.
Bennett and Mary Jane.
And then we had twin boys in 97.
When did you find out you were having twins? At what moment?
Around Thanksgiving of 96. Yeah.
But you obviously didn't plan on that going into.
Well, we knew it was a chance because there were 2 sets of twins in my background and 4 sets of twins in Linda's family. Her brothers were identical twins.
Okay.
So, it was the daily double.
And your parents were Betty and Dan.
Yeah.
And Dan, you said he made models for
Yeah,
the
he was a
auto
model
industry.
maker. Yeah.
What type of cars was he creating?
Well, growing up in South Bend, he went to work at Studebaker. I think he was involved in the 53, 54 Studebaker Starliner. They took an actual car, and he and the engineering staff turned it into a convertible. They did not produce it, however. He then moved to Continental, division of Ford and Lincoln in Detroit, where I was born. And he was on the team that produced the 56, 57 Lincoln. It's now called a Lincoln Continental, but at that time it was a Continental Mark II.
Okay.
The most expensive American car ever built at that time, more expensive than a Rolls Royce. He also made the model for the Ford Futura, which in 1966 became the Batmobile.
Wow.
Yeah. They sold it to whatever studio produced NBC or CBS for $1, sold the Futura, because by 1966 it was 10-year-old dream car.
Right.
And George Barris converted it to the Batmobile.
That's funny.
And then Dad worked for Curtiss Wright, the aircraft company, and they produced a air car that floated on air. And he also worked for Duncan McRae, who was a famous industrial designer, and they produced a number of different projects, from making over Texaco gas stations to a number of other crazy things. And he had also the Studebaker Astral in his portfolio. He built the atomic-powered dream car in 1957 for Studebaker.
Wow.
It was a show car. It was supposed to, and that became the Jetsons car. They used that design and used it for George Jetson.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
So before we continue on, I want to just kind of touch on the fact that we've already just gone through a few different divisions of your life, right?
Yeah.
You know, about family and
Sure.
a little bit on the river, a little bit of career.
Yeah.
So the purpose of not just these, but having this as an availability for members of the club,
Yeah.
you know, to save not just individual stories, but people's memories of their family, of their grandparents, to pass it on to the kids. What do you think of the value of that to the members here?
Yeah, it's very important. I think especially the last month we've had, unfortunately, 4 members pass away, 2 Commodores and 2 longtime members. So, you can't go back and recapture that stuff once they're gone. And, especially those individuals, 2 of which were Commodores at the club. There's a big dedication of time and energy to manage this club, and it's a job that is very challenging. Your phone never stops ringing.
Sure.
And there's always something to do or some question to answer.
Well, one angle is being able to get the knowledge from the people that knew him to pass that on to the kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
So let's say Bob Fox, for example. How would you describe Bob Fox? Maybe what's a memory you've got of Bob?
Dedicated, hardworking Commodore. I think he was Commodore for 3 years. He really basically lived at the club. He was here, it seemed like, 7 days a week. His poor wife, Ginger, had to put up with that with a smile on her face. But as I said at his celebration of life, he was a great guy. He did a lot for the club.
What's some of the things that he did?
Oh, I mean, he was someone who helped hire a manager here for a period of time. He had to run so many different committees, including, his seat on the board. It's hard to zero in on 1 or 2 things because it's such a member-involved club, and the decisions were left up to him and the board and the chairman of the board to make those calls on everything from the boat and car show to, the color of the carpet, things like that.
Right.
I mean, it's a very wide and variety of item job. There's all kinds of things you have to deal with here. So it's like running a business,
right?
But you're a volunteer.
So you basically get the pat on the back.
Yeah.
Pretty much it.
Right.
Who were some other people that have passed away that kind of were mentors or big bros to you over the years?
Bob Dawson was a good friend. Bob was a Commodore for, I think, 2 years, and A lot of fun. He was a certified captain. He had captained big sailboats down in Florida. Um, One of my sponsors was, 40 years ago, was Cliff and Karen Bush. Cliff was a larger than life individual. He was a great orator, great booming voice. He and his wife had still have a company called Flag and Banner. They make flags, banners, uh, big graphics for the Speedway, all that kind of stuff. So very cool people. Cliff has passed away. I've met so many people here over the 40 years of being a member. Has it been 40? Yeah, something like that. 35 years. It's hard to zero in on anybody who's a mentor. It's like going to your class reunion every time you walk in here. You see people that you haven't seen in ages. You see people that want to be members, that come to you for advice on how to become a member. Because, there's 100 people on the waiting list.
Right now?
Yeah.
100.
Maybe more. Yeah.
So guess on when number 99 will actually get in.
5 years.
5? Holy cow.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
Hey, when did the waiting list start?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
What's a guess?
There is no waiting list when I joined in 1990.
Okay.
I think we read twice and got in almost immediately. But there was only 200 members at that time. Now we're up to 530, I think. It's a lottery. When we have the membership at the point where we can accept more people, you draw a number. And you might be number 1, you might be number 99.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. So, river. So, what are your modes of transportation? I know I just mentioned that, but you had to pause for a commercial break. What kind of boats, what kind of craft have you had over the years?
Our first boat was a 1963 Hydrodyne speedboat, which we had no idea how to operate a boat. Neither of us had a boat before, but we learned sometimes the hard way, and it was a fun little boat for a couple of years until we hit something and broke the outdrive in little pieces. And then our next boat we got and had for 16 years, which was a Viking deck boat. We raised the kids on that boat until we ended up getting a pontoon.
Okay.
And so we've had a pontoon ever since. We have a wave runner and a small John boat fishing boat.
So which ones have been your favorites that you just
Probably the pontoon and the wave runner. The pontoon's just like having your living room and your cooler and your entertainment
right
up and down the river. It's kind of the mode of transportation.
Tiki barge.
Yeah. Good friends with John Hughes that built it. Completely changed the social aspect of the river when that came on, because it was like something that we'd never had, and it brought a lot of people together that didn't know each other before.
Sure. So what are some of your, there's been the scavenger hunt things, there's been the raft races way back in the day. What are some of your favorite things that have occurred on the river that you just love being a part of, witnessing, or whatever?
I'll go back to the raft race. It happened before I moved here, but strangely enough, my wife was the last queen of the raft race in 1981.
Okay.
She was in a modeling career at that time and was elected by a committee who looked at all the photos of the applicants, and she was brought in as the queen of the raft race. And she was familiar with the river because of that. And so when we ended up buying a house, it was kind of ironic that she was involved in the last raft race, the WNAP raft race. There was a revival Q95 tried to do a few years after that, but it wasn't the same. We had, a lot of good times on the river with, our kids learned how to swim. Our kids fished. Our one son was a boarder. He would wakeboard behind our pontoon boat when he was small. Just a lot of fun. And I bought the John boat for them, but it was about the time that they both got interested in girls and driving cars. So that kind of went by the wayside, but it was a good little toy for them for a while. But there's so many stories on the river.
Give me some specific things you remember happening that.
Well, I'll tell you, and I have a couple photos I could send you of this. One brutal winter, it was so cold that the river froze over solid. Okay. And I looked out the window, and here was a table and chairs, and the Kauser brothers sitting around a table. And the Kauser brothers are all like 6'8", big boys. I thought, well, if they're out there, it's safe enough to walk across to the yacht club. And then there was another group of people that went out there with them. There was probably a dozen or more people on the river, frozen, having drinks and having fun. And so my daughter and I walked over. She was probably 12 or 13 at that time. And, it was just an interesting way to enjoy the river in inclement weather. We've been on the
Any dam stories?
no, not
Somebody
really.
going
Well,
over the
oh yeah,
side,
there's
or
a 100 stories of that. One year during a flood, a friend of mine's brother had just bought a new speedboat, and he went out during the flood. Okay, the river was extremely swift and moving. He had his wife and a friend, and I think their 6-month-old baby with them. And he hit something, it broke his prop, and he went over the dam backwards. Okay, so his boat was resting backwards, pointing towards the sky. And you can find this on YouTube. They rescued them with a helicopter. Yeah, it's, I believe, a Channel 59 report that's still on YouTube.
was it just high water?
Oh, yeah, it was rolling like crazy.
Okay.
John. I mean, none of us with any brains would go out in it. But this guy, had just bought a new boat at the boat show. Nobody was hurt except the boat.
How far north have you gone, and what's some of the going far that way stories?
Oh gosh, we haven't done a lot of that. I did it on my jet ski one time, up to the third pit, as they call it, past 465, and unfortunately sucked up a rock because it was shallow and had to roll it up on shore and take it apart and take the rock out, get home, and not do that again without a screen on the bottom. A lot of people go up there during not a high water, but enough that you can get through without hitting bottom like I did.
Okay.
But it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a group of people that tie up every weekend. We call it the White River Navy, and it's just one big pontoon party, and that happens in a couple different places up north. There's always people that park on the dam in low water because it's only about ankle deep there, and you can pull right up on the dam.
Now you mean standing on top of the dam ankle deep?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it? What's the drop right on this side of it?
It has changed a lot in the last few years. I don't think it's much deeper than 6 foot in some spaces. It's not terrible, but I mean, you see skiers up there and you see fishermen and kayakers and stuff like that. And if you know the dam, it's pretty easy to go up and anchor on it. And you'll see people with their lawn chairs and their barbecue grills and all kinds of great party fun.
So you're a corporate member.
Yes. 2 years ago, I became a corporate member.
Why did you want to?
Well, I'd been involved in starting the White River Yacht Club Classic Boat and Car Show. And there was a lot of decision making going on with it. And I thought I'd have a better chance of getting everybody to put their arms around it with becoming a corporate member. Plus, I liked what was going on at the club, and I wanted to help continue that. Our challenge with the boat and car show was to raise money for WRYC Children's Foundation to fight pediatric cancer. My co-chairman, Mike Boone, his great-granddaughter had a rare form of ocular cancer when she was 15 months old, and Riley saved her life. She's, I think, now 8 or 9 years old and in remission. But we started out very small. We raised $2,800 the first year, and last year, our 6th event, we raised $77,000.
Holy cow!
And now we have a White River Yacht Club endowment fund established at Riley, and we got a $100,000 match from the Walther Cancer Institute. So we have a fund.
They threw more than what you raised. They threw
So we have a fund in our name that has $150,000 in it, and then we have another overage. The difference, if we can raise another $65,000 this year, we will then get another $100,000 match.
That's
And
phenomenal.
all that goes to pediatric cancer research, saving little kids' lives.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So this past year, I came kind of, just kind of decided to do the last minute and did a lot of interviews
On the fly.
and did a lot of stuff and made a little movie of it. What'd you think of the movie?
It was great.
I made?
It was great. It's great to have you interview Mike. We had so many different cars and boats. It was great to see the variety.
Well, the first clip was that Mustang going down the river.
Yeah.
Like I happened to walk up and I didn't even know it was going to be a thing. And I look over and like, there's a Mustang in the river.
Yeah, it's actually a kit you can buy. I've seen a couple Corvettes with it, and it's a modern version of the Amphicar from the early 60s. It was a car that you could just drive right in, and these guys are crazy enough to convert their cars to Amphicars, and this was like a 1999 Mustang.
Well, and the water level was kind of high on the doors too. It wasn't like it was low and there's a whole bunch of boat beneath
The doors
it.
don't open.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would.
You have to slide over. But yeah, it was cool, and he also brought a hand-built speedboat that he used a set of plans from 1940s era Popular Mechanics and built this speedboat. Yeah, this guy's, he's the hobbyist of hobbyists.
So how do you get the word out? How do you let people know and how do you make sure there's cool cars? Like,
we did it all on social media.
Okay.
We didn't pay for any advertising. We established a Facebook page. We just really got the word out on social media. I listed it on several car show sites.
Okay.
And it just snowballed. So our first year we had about 60 vehicles. Last year we had 144.
So nice jump.
Yeah. And nice jump in fundraising too.
Right.
We had
what was it for? Would you raise the first year?
$2,800.
$2,800. That's it. Now it's gone from 28 to 70.
77,000. Now the difference is we now have sponsors. Okay, we didn't have sponsors in the beginning. We just had the entry fee, whatever people wanted to put in the donation bucket,
right,
and that type of thing. So then it rolled up. I think, if I remember correctly, $2,800, $11,000 the next year, $22,000 the next year, $34,000 the year after that, $56,000 the year after that, and then $77,000. But that big number came from people who were sponsors. We had a $10,000 sponsor, a couple $5,000 sponsors, $2,000 sponsors, and a lot of $1,000 sponsors. And it just, like I said, snowballed into it's a fantastic event.
So if you're looking at it from above as a map, what are the different areas and different things that people can go and enjoy
during the classic?
Yeah, around the whole property. How's it all laid out?
Okay, so when you come in on the main driveway, on the right-hand side will be the kids zone. And the kids zone has a bounce house and a basketball challenge, and we've had face painting. We had an obstacle course, and just a good, fun little area. The parking lot is for parking, and then the meadow, which is where we normally store our boats in the wintertime, becomes the display area for the boats and cars. So we put the boats in the, let's call it the ring, on the left-hand side of the driveway as you're coming in, and then the meadow is full of cars and trucks that are on display. We have our exotics, and this year we had Corvette Row along the corporate dock side of things. There's a giant concrete pad we used, and we also had about 10 vendors that had booths behind that, and everything from jewelry to we had I think it was called Garage Masters that would come in and retrofit your garage with floor covering and organization and stuff like that. Most of us need that, and a little bit of everything. And we've had car graphics, people do the wraps. We've had the Reef, which is an aquarium place, and all kinds of interesting people and interesting vendors. But mostly interesting are the variety of vehicles we get. Everything from 1920s wooden boats to brand new Ferraris and supercars and Panteras. We had
Brett Neal.
Yeah,
that yellow car,
the Pantera,
ridiculous.
Yeah,
I saw the engine on that thing.
He's got a black one too.
It's unbelievable.
He's got a great collection of cars.
Yeah.
My grandson's favorite car was his 1946 Jeep with a fake machine gun mounted on the back. I don't think he has it anymore, but it was really cool.
Well, there was the Barney Fife.
Yeah, we have the cast. We have the cast of characters from Mayberry Man.
How'd that come into the
Chris,
mix?
who plays Gomer in Mayberry Man, is a member here.
Oh.
And we have a number of celebrities that appeared. Jay Baker from Q95 is our MC. Dave Dugan, who's a full-time stand-up comedian, was part of the event last year. We had Gunnar from Q95, Christy Lee from Q95, Dave the King Wilson, Rob from WIBC. I think of Rob's last name. Rob Kendall. Rob Kendall, Off the Rails is his show, I think. But it's just a lot of people that wanted to help the event raise money.
Right.
And I think Gunnar raffled off his Q95 T-shirt.
Well, you had a Huey helicopter.
That was before the Classic. That was at the old the old open house.
No, this year a Huey went over the top.
Yeah, but we used to have the Huey give rides for $100 a head.
Wow.
They would land in the Ravenswood Beach.
Wow.
And you could take a ride around town in the Huey.
So was that guy paid for this year that came over to the top, or was that just happened to happen?
No, I think a member here is still involved in it.
Huh.
But I took my boys up in it when they were about 10, and they both said, I'm never getting in a helicopter again. Because it's a Vietnam era Huey.
Yeah.
With no doors on the side. You're sitting on an aluminum bench with a little skinny seatbelt. And, you're looking into the caverns of the gravel pit up at 96th Street, the giant gravel pit, IMI's. And you go over Butler's campus and you go all around the north side and then you land back here.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. So your wife is Linda.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys meet?
As I said before, I moved to town.
Well, yeah, it was the salon.
Yes. She worked at a salon downtown and I got my hair cut there.
That's right. So how long did you guys date before you really kind of realized, this is probably going to be the person and I want to get married?
Oh, boy. Well, for me, it was the first date.
Yeah.
Because we had known each other for a few months. And she was going through some challenges with her ex-boyfriend. And we talked because I had gone through the same thing at one time. And so we kind of accidentally went out to dinner one night. And it was magical. And that was in December, before Christmas, and we were engaged on spring break in March.
Wow. Yeah. Where'd you go? What was the trip?
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
So you already had Rachel.
Yes.
Right. And how old was Rachel when you guys?
6.
Oh, she was 6.
Yeah.
So Linda just kind of stepped into mom.
Well, from a distance. She lived. Yeah. The daughter lived in South Bend. I lived here.
Oh, okay.
So we commuted on the weekends a lot of the times.
So what aspects of Linda's personality really kind of stand out that really make her different from other people you've met and known? And
well, she was a very driven entrepreneur. Her styling business at that time, she was what's called a booth renter. And she was very driven by it. And I admired that. And we just got along great and still do, strangely enough. But no, it just was one of those things where I didn't feel like I had any control over it.
Right?
Yeah.
So what ways do you think that she still motivates you?
Well, she's still very driven. She's the nicest, kindest person in the world to everybody. She has a whole ton of friends, and she has been a great mom to our kids and to my daughter, her stepdaughter. And my family loves her, and it's just one of those things where you meet her, it's hard to not fall in love with her. Yeah, she's that kind of person. And she's not a bad dancer either.
Not a bad dancer, huh? Well, and then your twins.
Yeah.
So how do you describe the differences between them? How are they're twins, but they're obviously, right. Yeah. How have they, like two magnets?
Yeah.
You end up, if you're the exact same, you end up pushing each other. What's one loves red, one loves blue. Like, what are the differences in them?
Well, it's funny because Linda has identical twin brothers, and they couldn't have been more different from each other. One is a staunch conservative Republican. The other one is a bleeding heart liberal.
Okay.
And we could not talk politics at any family gathering because it would almost, end up in blows. Our sons, Jack and Seth, are somewhat polar opposites too. They're fraternal twins. So Seth kind of favors Linda's family and Jack favors mine in their looks. Seth is one of these guys that, let's back up. On Christmas when they were 12, Seth wanted a guitar and Jack wanted a ventriloquist dummy because Jack had seen Goosebumps and got crazy over Slappy, the evil ventriloquist dummy. He always wanted one. I had one from when I was growing up, and I gave it to him, and he took off with it. Seth really was into rock music. I got him a inexpensive guitar kit from Sam's Club, and he became an incredible guitar player. And they both are very talented young men. And Jack started performing the Immaculate Heart Talent Show, third grade. We won that. And he was so good at what he was doing, every year they would just give him the award and then judge everybody else on the talent show because he was that good. Seth followed a path of getting some really great instructors to teach him guitar. And he got in his first band, I think, when he was 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. And he was in several different bands in high school. They recorded a CD. They played at the Emerson Theater, at the Hoosier Dome, which is a small club in Fountain Square. It's not the old real Hoosier Dome, but nobody had that name trademarked. So long story short, Jack found the ventriloquist convention in Cincinnati. We started going to that, and he learned under the instructions of Jeff Dunham, who's one of the biggest comedians in the world. And that led him to start performing, go to an acting school. And then 2 years ago, he was on America's Got Talent.
Wow.
And
how'd he do?
He was in the top 5 finalists. So he didn't get to the finals, but he was in the top 5. And it just really launched his career.
Wow.
Seth, on the other hand, moved to Hollywood also. Jack went to school in Hollywood. Seth moved out there, went to the Musicians Institute, and was in a number of different bands and played at the WRYC. He calls me up one day. He's only been there for like a month. He said, "Hey, I sat in with a band at at this little bar." I said, "What was the name of the bar?" He says, "The Roxy." I said, "Do you realize what the Roxy is in rock music history? I mean, everybody who was anybody played there."
Yeah.
And I said, "What was the band?" He says, "Local H." I said, "Local H, they had like 4 hits in the 90s?" He said, yeah. They called me up on stage. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And that's on YouTube also. And, he finally realized at some point the rock and roll lifestyle wasn't for him. So he's back in Indy, working a great job and still playing for his own entertainment.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Is he in a band or anything?
No, he's not. He's
No.
not at this point in his life, but still has a guitar collection and still plays for his own fun. He's played with Dan Hall's band before.
Yeah.
Sat in with them, and yeah, he's a great, talented kid. They're both talented kids.
Hey, you've got a couple of grandkids.
Yeah.
Bennett, Mary Jane.
Yep.
And how would you kind of describe them, their personalities, and just
they're
some aspects of them?
Very into sports. Bennett was a wrestler and baseball player, and he's now just strictly baseball. I think he was on 3 teams last year, Little League, travel team, and one other, it seemed like. Mary Jane's very into soccer. But he's got car fever now. He wants to get a car because he's 15 and a half, got the piece of paper that says he's a learner's permit.
Right.
And so we'll see what happens with that.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking your time today.
Sure.
Kind of going through all this. And how do you think, have you watched some of the other ones?
I have. It's great. It's great what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to be able to, kind of take it into the family as well, besides just getting, these are kind of like general overviews to be able to see the different areas that could be saved within people's lives.
Sure.
But again, I thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
And you're in charge of the Facebook.
Yes, I run the Facebook page.
Right. So we're going to be putting some of these up on the Facebook so people can check them out.
Yeah.
And love your house behind you.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful view. All right, Kevin, we'll have fun down in Florida.
Thanks.